Good morning. My name is Jose Flores. I'm a teacher here at Brawley Union High School. I'm also an Instructional Quality Commissioner for the California Department of Education.
Are you a citizen? If yes, by birth or naturalization?
I was naturalized, so I became a U.S. citizen in 1996 after I had been teaching here at Brawley Union High School for about 6 years, 5 to 6 years. And it was an interesting situation because I actually had to leave during one of my lunch breaks at Brawley Union High School to take the test at Calexico, and that was actually the subject matter that was being taught to my students at that time.
When it comes to politics, will you describe yourself as liberal, conservative, or neither liberal nor conservative?
I feel I lean a little bit towards the liberal side, but that has to do with the background of how I was raised and the ability to understand of who assisted my family and myself when I was a student here in Brawley, kindergarten through high school. For example, getting free food as a migrant student, etc. A lot of the benefits that our family got had to do with what at that time the Democrats were proposing. So I sort of also support a lot of the initiatives for more inclusion for females, and as an educator, obviously the LGBT is a big issue. So a lot of those issues are more liberal than conservative. That doesn't mean I'm a radical, but I do tend to lean a little bit more liberal.
Did you participate in the last presidential election?
Well, I participated in two ways. I participated obviously as a citizen by voting, but I also, as a civics teacher, I try to get the community involved by having family and friends vote. Strong reminders to family, my parents that also became U.S. citizens, my siblings as well, and more importantly, my students. I have 180 students here at Brawley High School. Some of them are 18 years old, so we registered them to vote. And we also had the 17-year-olds assist with voting drives, campaign for different individuals that they support, and also having their family members register to vote and vote, and credit was given to themselves by voting as individuals, or credit was given indirectly by having a friend or family member vote, which brought a lot of attention to the community for the need of engaging in public discourse through having a voice and voting.
What do you consider the most important and why? Education, economy, or immigration?
All three are very important for different reasons. Obviously, the basis of everything is the economy, but the economy also ties into immigration. Being in a border society, it's kind of like a push-pull factor. Because of the economy, people from Mexico, South America, Asia, all over the world come to the United States, and specifically California, because of its strong economy. As my parents came in the 60s and 70s looking for a better life through the economy, but immigration was a big part. And again, it kind of ties in together because education is very important, because as you know, in the United States, to further oneself and get a middle class life, you need an education. For example, I was the first one in my family to ever go to college, so first generation. My mom and dad had a second and third grade education only in Mexico, from Michoacan and from Nayarit. So they came over to the United States through immigration, but searching a better economy, and at the same time for their kids when they got a little bit older and went to kindergarten to have an education in the United States. So in a way, all three are kind of interrelated. So it's kind of hard to say one is more important to me than the other. All three of them are very important. And now in 2017, the immigration issue is huge. due to some of the politics that are being discussed. And I think we need to have a very strong, vigilant state, because California by itself is a very powerful economic entity and a very powerful political entity as well. And being pro-immigration in California is very important because it leads the United States in allowing people to understand that this is a nation of immigrants, and we truly believe what is inscribed in the Statue of Liberty, the poem by Emma Lazarus. So again, that's a longer answer than you might have wanted, but they're all very important.
When voting for a presidential candidate, do you agree with every idea they share?
No, it's very hard to find nowadays a candidate that you agree with 100%. At times you have elections that you have to choose the lesser of two evils, but for the most part, even if the bigger picture that we have to understand is that we cannot be selfish and just think about ourselves, but we have to think about the future. For example, even though I might be totally pro-abortion, I'm actually pro-choice, because I think as a male, it's hard for me to mandate what a female can and cannot do with her body. And even though a candidate might be totally against that or for that, that doesn't mean I would vote for them or against them, because I want to see the entire package, what they have for immigration, what they have for social services, how they see education, how education is going to be funded, and many other issues. For example, the support given to newcomers to the country, and how they would be able to support females, if females would get equal pay, or if females would get equal representation, whether it be at local level, state level, or federal level. So it's hard to say that you're 100% one candidate and you totally agree with all their policies being enacted. And it's just a matter of trying to choose what package better suits the needs for you and your community and your family, and any other issues that you might not agree with. Hopefully they don't affect you at, in a format that might directly impact you on a daily basis. So there's some issues that I don't agree with, but they don't affect me on a daily basis, and I could live with that.
Do you think young adults who are voting for the first time should be advised? Why?
I think young adults that are voting for the first time should have a background on what they're going to be voting on. Nowadays, we need to have a voice. That's very important. And many of the people, for example, in my class or the Imperial Valley, are minorities that usually don't get represented as well at the state or national level. But things are changing, and our students are more informed than they used to be. And it's good for them to have their own voice. So as a teacher, I kind of teach them certain things, but I cannot mandate that they learn or feel or believe or demand things that I believe in 100%. It's up to them to find their own way, and it is my job to give them different viewpoints, and hopefully they come to their own conclusion, because the last thing you want is, for example, a student to be a robot and always do what someone else tells them to do. They have to find their own way to come to their own conclusion, and do their own research, back their own candidate, and whether it's liberal or conservative, Republican or Democrat or independent, it is their choice and it is their voice in this country to select anyone that they want to. But the apathy nowadays is very tough, because young adults, fewer than 15% vote in the elections, and we're trying to push that to be a little bit higher. And we have a strong initiative in our school to have students in civics not only engage with campaigning and voting registration, but also engage their families to have more of a voice, more of a presence in elections, whether it's for the local elections of school board, city council, county supervisors, even at the state level, but also more importantly, when it comes to voting for their national representatives like senators and congressmen, and obviously President of the United States.
What are your opinions on voting rights?
Voting rights are very important. Obviously, it dates back to Reconstruction, or the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, with slaves being freed. Then they become U.S. citizens if you're born in the United States, and eventually they acquire the right to vote. And at times now we feel that we take these rights for granted and we don't engage. Everyone complains of what is wrong in the United States, what is wrong in California, what is wrong in the Imperial Valley. And then you ask them, did you vote? And they say, no, I did not vote. So why are you complaining? So this right to vote is very important. And I think we need to take care of it, because if we're not careful, just like other states gerrymander and they kind of rig of what pocket of population is going to have dominance in a specific region, it's scary to think that certain states are also trying to have mandatory ID laws for voting, but yet for purchasing a handgun or a rifle or whatever, it's a little bit easier to do that than it is to vote. Luckily, here in California, we're a little bit more open and inclusive, and it's a little bit easier to exercise our privilege and our right to vote.
What are your thoughts about the previous election?
My thoughts about the previous election, that's an interesting one as a voter and also as a teacher for Broad Union High School in the topic of civics. My students, for the most part, I want to say about 80% of them supported Hillary Clinton, 20% supported Donald Trump. So it was a very emotional time, and the feelings were very raw, and obviously it was a huge issue because of some of the rhetoric and the tone that was taken by now President Trump. Back then it was President-elect. And it was a different time due to the mere fact of the way people treated each other. And I think there needs to be a bit more civility and respect. Nowadays, everyone kind of goes to the extreme, and they get very argumentative and confrontational, and it causes issues, whether it's with the press or whether it's freedom of speech. If they don't agree with you, they tend to take it to the level of trying to throw you out or trying to physically manhandle you. And it's very difficult to see that and try to teach young students that this is democracy, when for many years it's not been that bad. And hopefully in the future, the young leaders like yourself and my classmates, my students, actually would understand that you can disagree, but also in a democracy, we have to protect difference of opinion and allow people to have their own voice.
What do you think are the most essential rights?
The most essential rights, obviously, if we're talking about the amendments or the Bill of Rights, I would have to say having a voice and having the ability, unlike in other countries, to at times critique your leaders is very important. And if you're not happy with the job that they're doing at the time, what they're producing, you can always obviously replace them and vote them out of office. And I think that's huge in a democracy. In other countries, you would go to jail, you would get even killed if you were to criticize your political leaders. So here, I think that's huge that we're able to vote people in office. While in office, if we don't like what they're doing, we can criticize and point out some of their deficiencies, and in further elections, 2 years, 4 years down the road, vote them out of office. So I think that's one of the biggest for me.
Do you think there are issues that are not acknowledged at this time?
Well, if specifically now, issues that are being ignored would be, I think, issues with the environment. My students do a lot of work of advocacy with environmental literacy and civic engagement. And now with the new administration, there are a lot of initiatives that the EPA, whether it's from the main headquarters in Washington, D.C., or the one that we work with, Region 9 out of San Francisco, a lot of initiatives have been thrown out. And that is huge because in the future, hopefully, we don't have issues of terrible water quality or making air quality worse. And that affects us on a daily basis, whether young or old, whether Republican or Democrat, living in California, living in the United States. You would think that it would be a given that we would have clean water and we would have clean air. But like we see in many states or many cities throughout the country, that is not necessarily the case. So I think that's one of the biggest issues right now, that we're beginning to shortchange ourselves, where we allow companies to drill in many pristine areas, whether it's forest or offshore California, which could later turn into a major disaster by polluting our pristine coastline. Having discussed air quality, obviously, we allow people to come in and bring companies or corporations that, yes, are going to offer jobs, but we're going to loosen up what they can pollute into the air. That right there is a trade-off that I'm not willing to compromise on, because even though it produces jobs, I don't want to have jobs at the cost of having a family member acquire an illness, cancer, for example, because of more pollutants in the air due to lack of regulation by the federal government.
I was a student in your civics class 3 years ago. What have you and your students done since then?
Well, the students at Brawley Union High School every year get more and more engaged in what is going on in their community. They have the belief that they can change the world, and they attend. For example, we have 80 to 100 kids attending school board meetings, city council meetings. At times they go to county supervisor meetings. They meet state representatives, their senator, and their assembly member. They visit us. Some of our students, we visit Sacramento and also Washington, D.C., and their federal representation. We have a strong relationship with the courts, where they have been mentored by superior courts from Imperial County. We have students have been mentored by the 4th District Court of Appeals with Justice McConnell out of San Diego, and obviously the Chief Justice, which is a great partner of Brawley Union High School. Chief Justice Tani Cantel Sakauye is an awesome partner that pushes for civic engagement. The students have also been instrumental this year in acquiring, while we had not won a Golden Bell, this year the students were a big part of acquiring the Golden Bell for CSBA, California School Board Association in San Francisco. This past summer, the students were a big part of me traveling to the White House with President Obama and acquiring a presidential award due to our civic engagement and environmental literacy that we do throughout the year. And there's many different awards, whether it be local, state, or federal, that this class that you were a part of 3 years ago has now developed to be one of the model programs in the state and in the nation, where people come and observe what the students are doing, because they truly not only learn about civics and the environment, but they apply their knowledge. As you know, we don't just read out of a textbook and take tests, memorize for a test with multiple choice questions, but they actually take what they learn and apply it out in their community on a daily basis, and they live by their class motto, which you know as well. And every year it gets a little bit better. So I'm looking forward to next year to see what the students that are juniors now are going to take this class. This class now is considered an honors class for the first time next year. It took 5-6 years, but next year the courses that I have are going to be honors civics class. Again, due to all the work that you did 3 years ago and my students did this year. So many different things. And some of these students will be obviously going over to IVC next year, and hopefully they can continue to grow and broaden their horizons in Imperial Valley College as well.